Hi, I am Jenny and welcome to FREEJOO, the global community of educators. Let me show you why as an educator you should make FREEJOO an important part of your teaching and learning practice. A community of teaching practice is important for any educator. On FREEJOO you will be able to access CollabEd, which is like LinkedIn but for educators. Here you will be able to connect and network with other educators from all around the world. You can build your own community of teaching practice or join one of the many other existing groups and learn and share ideas, lesson plans, etc. with each other. Then, for a more formalized approach to professional development, you can go to SkillEd, which is like Netflix for educators. Here, you will be able to access a wide range of courses designed by global experts that will help you to learn about new pedagogical, technical, and soft skills, all related to 21st century education and the future of work. There are more than 20 courses available for free, and for more advanced level courses, you can upgrade to the Silver membership plan for just $20 per year and get access to all courses designed by Academia. The courses are available in English and in several other Asian languages. And what's more, you will receive a free verifiable and tamper-proof digital certificate for each course that you complete. If you have upgraded your membership to the Silver, Gold, or Platinum plans, you also get access to DesignEd, which is like Canva for educators. Here you will find the easiest and fastest way to practice your own instructional design skills and build your own courses. We have pre-integrated several third-party edtech apps like Flipgrid, Canva, Mentimeter, Padlet, H5P, Zoom, etc. right into FREEJOO so you can make your courses engaging and fun for your own learners. As you can see, there is a lot you can do on FREEJOO as an educator. So what are you waiting for? Go to www.freejoo.com and get your very own free lifetime membership today. See you soon on FREEJOO.
Okay, hello and welcome everybody to all our friends, fellow educators and academics, administrators, deans, heads of schools from all over the world. Wherever you are, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you. I am Roy Platon, one of the co-founders and chief community officer for AcadAsia, and we are a mission-driven edtech business based out of Singapore, and we are here to empower educators everywhere. Of course, I'd like to do a shout out to our beloved friends from all over. So we have our friends from, I think, from India. Hello, Miss Apaki. Apki, I hope I said your name correctly. We have our friends from Philippines as well, from Lucena City, etc. And of course, our friends from Indonesia, Vietnam, Thailand. Hello and good afternoon to all of you. So we have a very interesting topic today. This is part of our ongoing Fireside Chat series every Wednesdays. We just want to say hi, hello, and just welcome everybody to the program. And as with our regular Fireside Chats, please relax, enjoy yourselves. Please sit back, and hopefully you have your cup of cocoa or coffee or tea or any other relaxing drink or snack that you have now. And we'll just kind of share our thoughts and ideas on as we continue to improve our skills as educators with very much important topics relating to our continued development as 21st century educators. Our speakers today are really quite amazing, and we'll be talking about the very interesting topic. So before I introduce them, what are we going to be talking about this week? Okay, so this week, our topic is conflict resolution. Okay, it's probably not the most popular topic. It actually is very challenging, and sometimes we also need to kind of structure the discussion so that we can better understand. We might think that this is something that's commonplace and it's pretty obvious, but in fact, if we drill down a bit deeper, there are actually ways to manage this. Okay, how do we deal with our sometimes negative feelings that comes out of it? So sometimes when two people, sometimes they eventually even more, or in groups of people, whether in school or outside of school, you can't help it, but sometimes you might disagree with each other. And now through this webinar and our accompanying course that comes with it, we will look at the overview of some processes that help us adjust and to help resolve possible conflicts. No? So for you, our dear participants and our friends, It's crucial to learn these conflict resolution skills. And if you want to deal with negative feelings and all of that, and how to manage them, this is actually the great program for you. So you can watch our webinar and then sign up for the course accompanying this on FREEJOO so that you can get your certificates afterwards. Okay, so that's our topic for today. So we have two of our guest speakers, both coming from Philippines. The first one actually is very much an academic and has a lot of experience. She's a veteran guidance counselor from Gapan South Central School, 16 years worth of experience in organizational management, administration, and implementation of guidelines of guidance services in the school setting, right? And she's very familiar with various levels of the school, whether that's between students, among teachers, and even management of schools. Her expertise is in designing and facilitating activities that address student and teacher growth and development. So I'm sure with all her experience, she's encountered some occasions where conflict has happened, and she can share with us her insights and how to manage it better in the school setting. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Ma'am Maria Concepcion Manile de la Rueda, or Miss G. Miss G, hello.
Yes, hi. A rainy afternoon to everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening to other viewers natin. All right, sir.
Thank you for joining us this afternoon, Ms. G. I
Yes.
know at least for our friends here in the Philippines, in some parts of the country, it's really
Mhm.
strong rains. It's an unusual summer for us here. Usually
Yes,
it's very warm and humid, but now there's
stormy.
also a lot of rain and storm. So really changing weather patterns. I hope all of you in our sister countries in Southeast Asia are also doing okay, as well as our neighbors from other countries. I hope all of you are doing fine and the weather's fine. Okay, our second speaker, and he was able to join us very last minute, and we're very grateful for him sharing us some of his time to give us a non-academic perspective, although he still teaches. So he graduated cum laude from the University of the Philippines School of Economics, and he also before being admitted to the bar in 2004, he also graduated from the UP College of Law. To follow up that with extensive academic resume. He also graduated with a diploma from the European Union Studies from the European Union Institute in Japan, where he also holds a master's degree in international economic and business law. And it is conferred upon him by the Kyushu University Faculty of Law under the auspices of the Young Leaders Program. It is sponsored by the Japanese government. So credentials from the Philippines and Japan. And even more impressive, concurrently, he is teaching at the UP College of Law as an assistant professor. And his own practice, he is a co-founding partner at Mossvelt Law Offices. And he is also in charge of the Interagency Council Against Trafficking, also the Department of Legal Services and Department of Legislative Liaison, as the OIC and Assistant Secretary at the Department of Justice, DOJ, for the Philippines. So he's with Philippine government, but he has also private sector experience. I am very proud to introduce my good friend, Attorney Nicholas Felix T. ASEC Nikki. Hello, good afternoon.
Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Roy. Good afternoon, Mamji. Thank you, Roy, and thank you, Akadesia, for having me today. It's a pleasure. I look forward to sharing whatever I can share now regarding this topic.
Fantastic. And we're so happy to have you here, Asik Nikki, so that we can actually get a fresh perspective, right? Because typically when we have these discussions, we usually have mostly academic experts come in. But with you, with your private and government expertise, I'm sure you'll shed a lot of light into our topic. Okay, and it's an interesting topic at that, especially for our neighbors here. As you know, we recently had our own elections, and you know it can get rather political, but we'll try to keep the focus on the discussions in terms of conflict in the school setting. And we'll see, we'll sprinkle in a little here and there some of our insights. Okay. So as we've, started out, at top of the program, we said, sometimes it's inevitable that, some people will disagree. right? So even sometimes in our own families,
Yeah.
right? Sometimes we don't get along with our brothers or sisters or the parents, and let's say there's a child, and if the child is not able to get what they want, they throw a tantrum. Okay, so that's just an example of how conflict arises. Obviously, each situation is different. And in the school setting, depends on the type of learners you have. If they're much younger or they're much older and more mature, then of course the conflict kind of varies, right? But I guess I'll start off with my first question, and either one of you can jump in to kind of share your thoughts. So, what is it about conflict that makes it so difficult, right? And is a really challenging question. What happens when seemingly sometimes we normally behave well? We're usually good people, very approachable, accommodating people. But sometimes, if the conflict happens, we start behaving badly or poorly. All right, so it's not usually in our character. So, what about conflict makes it very challenging, and especially when our emotions start manifesting themselves?
Yeah. Maybe I'll take the first question,
Yes.
Sir Roy. No? Okay,
Sure.
I think no, conflict is really difficult. Why? What makes it difficult? Because no, there's this variation of opinions, no, perception on things, and it has differences. No, the things that you believe. Somehow, for example, your boss or your head and me as a counselor, I have this program, and eventually he or she would disagree on that. So somehow you will be left. What will I feel? Something like galit ba ako? Maiinis ba ako sa boss ko because hindi niya ako inintindi, hindi niya ako pinakinggan, and somehow threatening. No, there's the feeling of threat with each other. Kasi when you have a conflict already, and it might affect, no, ako, sir, I could see that there's an effect on productivity, performance,
Mm,
relationship itself, no, goals, achievement. So if you are not comfortable working with each other, for example, your colleague, and I think the result of the project or whatever program that you have in mind or whatever you have to do will be affected. So and besides, the children or the learners will also be affected if teachers don't have this relationship, good relationship with each other.
yeah, that's very
So,
true. We
mhm,
cannot help it sometimes if if something is not comfortable, and something is really bugging us, and we're in disagreement.
mhm,
We're not sharing the same outlook. It can be
mhm,
very challenging, right? Especially in a school setting. Like 2 years of the pandemic, our fellow teachers had such huge challenges in terms of moving from a classroom setting in terms of education, but now moving to an online setting, right? And I'm sure there were some conflicts on how to deliver the class. Maybe some of the students are not participating, so it's really very challenging in that aspect. Any other insights you'd like to share on this? What makes it really challenging, Attorney Nikki, ASEC Nikki?
May I weigh in, right?
Sure, sure, please go ahead.
Yeah. So one of the things I find difficult about conflict, or at least difficult to accept, is that it's inevitable, it's unavoidable.
Mm,
All of us, even if you don't want it to happen, most likely, no, not most likely, definitely, in any organization you are in, there will be conflict. Even with outside an organization, it's natural for you sooner or later to come into conflict with someone you deal with, whether that be your neighbor, family member, whether it be someone you just meet in the street. Conflict, unfortunately, is inevitable. But and it's that inevitability that it's difficult to deal with because, as you said earlier, Roy, conflict can bring about a lot of negative emotions. And when we do into a conflict or potentially get into a conflict, those negative emotions already come in, already begin. And we know, no, we know that those negative emotions, at least those, that's not us, no? That's not the you that you know who you are. That's not the you that you're used to, no, unless you're the type of person who likes conflict. And I think that by itself is already something that's something that has to be dealt with initially. And another thing that for me is difficult about conflict is how it can escalate. If it's not properly dealt with, it can escalate into into an even bigger conflict. It can escalate into it can escalate into other aspects of your life. And And from what we observe, no, from my job now, it can escalate to maybe costly, reckless, and long litigation. And that's what we don't want to happen. We don't want conflict to get to the point get to the point of no return, where the parties are just so angry at each other, and that anger has festered to the point that if no one budges, the conflict will never end.
Yeah, and it's a great point you bring up, Asik Nikki, right? Because in a bigger picture, while we're this community we have in Acadesia is also very focused on the school setting. We're also aware of social events, events that are happening in our society. I mean, even if we look at outside our country, there are certain issues happening in Europe, in Eastern Europe in particular, between Ukraine and Russia, and that is some kind of conflict that has been simmering from since the Crimea times, and then the Donbass region, and then up to now. No, so it's really gotten quite to a point where it's you're not able to discuss or iron things out anymore. If we bring it back down to a more, let's say, in our own government, let's say, sometimes, as you mentioned, sometimes it gets through lengthy litigation. The parties cannot seem to come to an agreement on anything. They just decide to take it each other to court, right? I mean, if you've seen the showbiz news naman, it's Amber Heard and Johnny Depp, right? So if we bring it to the school setting, I mean, you can have, let's say, fellow students, or really angry at each other. Say sometimes they can't help that they're fighting, or let's say even our co-workers, sometimes we're trying to achieve certain learning outcomes for our teachers, and we can't see eye to eye on, let's say, how to deliver the lesson, right? So these are some of the things that and sometimes it starts with the emotion, right? Sometimes that's the
Yeah.
first thing that happens. So uh, Miss G, what do you think?
Yes.
What happens at the onset of that conflict? Whether
Yeah.
it's starting, nag-uumpisa pa lang, it's just
Mm-mm.
beginning, right? Or and then how do we not let it linger, or what we need to do to help process those negative emotions?
Yeah. As much as possible, sir, no. Take time to think. When you
Mm,
are you came across with a conflict, as much as possible, you focus. No? Where are you in the
mm,
situation? That's what I
mm,
always make it a point. Oh, muna time out. Okay, guys, time out muna. Take your time to think. What went wrong? What is your participation in the situation? Eventually, there's no conflict no without even without your involvement. So it means you did something also, or somehow you are insisting something. Your opinions, or maybe you could have bargaining and negotiation. So that's what I always do, even with my students. No, we
mm.
cannot settle this right now. I want to give you time to think. Come on, have your quiet time. Both, even it's the teacher who's consulting me, and I would say, "Ma'am, take time." And then eventually, when your emotions are not that high, come back to me. Let's talk. And then eventually they would come up with with realization. Yeah, ma'am, I think I was wrong in this part. I think how would you do it better next time? So those are the things that I would come along when they're approaching me for counseling, or even I have or let's say they would consult something like that, or anger management issues. I want them to point out what really went wrong. That's important. Eh. It's not blaming other people. What is important is that you're taking the accountability and responsibility if there's a conflict that happened. So that's it.
Right, right. I'll just, try to delve a little deeper
Yeah.
into the points you've shared, Miss
Mm-mm.
Gino. I think I like
Yeah.
what you said about taking time and pausing, right? So
Yeah.
we recognize that there's negative emotions, right? Sometimes we feel anger, we feel
Yeah.
frustrated, disappointed,
Mm-hmm.
parang sad, and in fact parang very vengeful, all right, or
Yes.
wanting
Mm-hmm.
to get back at that person or whoever who's making
Mm-mm.
us feel this way. But
Mm-mm.
as you mentioned, it's important to kind of catch ourselves, right? To kind of pause and say, what's happening? Why am I feeling
Mm-hmm.
these emotions? And
Yeah.
take kind of step back
And look
from
at the bigger picture.
and look at the
Yeah.
picture. And
Yeah.
well, it's very challenging in the
Yeah.
moment, right, Miss
Yeah.
G? Like if you're in the
Yes.
moment, sometimes the emotion gets the better
Too
of you, right?
high.
So it,
Yes.
it, it gets very high. So Like I saw before, like one method of kind of stepping away from the emotion is just counting 1 to 10, right? Or deep breathing, right?
Yes.
So para
Mm,
lang if you're at that moment that there's something that really triggered you,
mm,
right? That something really says, it can be a very simple thing. Like sometimes it's a
mm,
small thing. Let's say I'm walking down the street, and if I'm in a bad mood and someone cuts me off, right, or bumps my shoulder just a little bit, all of a sudden I get triggered and I try to
mm.
be angry with the person. But
Yeah.
maybe, as you said, try to put, think yourself in the situation. Am I
Yes.
contributing to the problem or not?
Correct.
Maybe I was not looking at where I was walking. Maybe he
Mm.
was also passing by. But before I get to that, I have to catch my emotion first,
Yes.
right?
Control,
Uh,
yeah, self-control. Rational,
yeah.
be rational actually. When you have this reaction, you really have to think. I have to think twice if I have to say this or I have to react this way. So that's important. You're being mindful of what you are about to say or about to do.
Yeah,
Mm,
I'll just ask now, Asek Nikki. Like sometimes, let's say you're in the courtroom or you're litigating, and sometimes the opposing counsel or opposing lawyer says something very controversial or something like that. So how do you prepare yourself to not to be too emotional about that, and try to kind of focus on the rebuttal or the response to that argument?
I can't really answer your question, right? Because I haven't been in the courtroom in a while. Last time I've
Okay,
been there was
okay,
maybe a decade. But
okay,
what
okay.
when I do remember those days, I feel like I didn't practice what we're talking about now. I actually reacted emotionally.
Okay. Okay.
But the thing is, back then, it's funny, back then I didn't feel like there was something wrong. I felt like that's what I have to
Mm,
do as a lawyer, especially in the court, no, in court, because at that
mm,
point, it's already an adversarial proceeding. I'm an advocate, and more often than not, in that kind of setting, it's lawyers butt heads.
mm,
But when I do look back these days, now to my days when I was still doing litigation, I realized, oh man, maybe I could have done things a little differently. And it's
mm,
precisely these things that we're talking about now. No, the words that I picked up from both G and you, Roy, are pause and the big picture, and those are two approaches or two simple things, seemingly simple things that matter so much when it comes to conflict resolution. You have to be able to recognize if you're at that point where your emotions are already taking over. I think that's the first step, and that's really hard because I think most of us are in automatic when it comes to these things. So the moment we feel something, we feel it and we let it out. But but getting that skill, no, recognizing when the emotions are there, maybe even what kind of emotion that is, that's the first step, and then that would lead to the pausing, that 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 Ma'am G said, no, pausing, and that's such a big thing, pausing, because the moment that you're able to pause, your emotions won't be able to take control of you, and I guess for me, nowadays when I'm at that point where I'm pausing, I change my perspective to what Miss G refers to as the big picture. And when I've done that, no, lately, no, the past few years, no, when it comes to potential conflicts or seeming conflicts, one of the things I realized is more often than not, conflict doesn't exist. The conflict or the cause for conflict doesn't exist. It's just in my
mm,
head. Uh,
mm,
More often than not, I feel that the person I'm dealing with, the person that I face, or the person that I might have a conflict with is doing something that is offensive or doing something that's negative to me. But I realized that maybe, but I realized after pausing and after taking the big picture perspective that there is easily a more reasonable reason, a more reasonable explanation for that than all these negative things that's going through my head. So I guess that's a very good approach on what we talked about. That pause and take the big picture. But of course, before that, we have to learn to be able to identify the emotion if our emotions are starting to take.
yes, I totally agree with you. What you were saying, Asik Nikki, is right. Sometimes when you're in the heat of the moment, it's like it's very hard to process, right? Because like especially I guess for our friends from other countries, sometimes Philippine culture, as we're speaking from our own cultural tendencies, and maybe you can share in the chat or maybe in the question and answer portion. If anyone wants to post their comments or questions, please share it. There's a Mentimeter link being shown now, and you can share your comments about this, right? But from a Philippine culture perspective, sometimes there's a tendency for us Filipinos to sometimes to take things a little too personally.
Yeah.
So, for
Yes.
example, let's say even just everyday driving the car, and you're just trying to get to your destination, and and sometimes another car passes you and cuts you off, right? It goes into your lane, and then the first reaction sometimes, if we're very aggressive drivers or parang if we're not in a very calm state, it's like this guy cut me off. He's not respecting my,
You're gonna pick a fight.
you're not respecting my area in the road, or
Yeah.
you kind of, went in front of me. I'm in line here at the stoplight, and you cut me off. Why did you do that?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
then it's then the emotion starts. But then let's use what Miss G was saying, right? If we
Yes.
pause and say what I'm feeling angry because I feel disrespected, but what if we look around at the situation? Was the hazard lights of the car in front of you on? So maybe if the hazard lights were on,
It's an
maybe
emergency.
there was an emergency and they're
Yes.
trying to get to the hospital or something like
Mhm.
that, right? So it's and applying this to, let's say even the school setting. um how do we kind of also separate the feelings from, as what Asek Nikki was sharing, is maybe if we really think about it, the conflict doesn't exist. Meaning, I wanna delve deeper on what he said, right?
Yeah.
So what do we mean, in your opinion, Miss G, when we say maybe
Yeah.
the conflict didn't exist, right? There's an emotion, but then what's actually happening?
It's just like you created it in your mind. It's your
Mm,
choice to get angry. Actually,
yes.
there yeah, there are times that if you can let it pass, just let it go. Come on, there
Mm,
are battles that you really have to choose, especially when you're maturing. Come on, grow
mm,
up. There are simple things that you can let it pass, or maybe give somehow deeper understanding on the situation rather than taking a fight or getting yourself into trouble. Or and somehow there are effects, if you get like this conflict inside the school. You know what, if you get conflict with your superiors, the problem would be promotion will be at stake. Come on, you will not be
promotion.
promoted.
Mm,
Yeah,
yes,
exactly, in
yes,
the teacher setting, no. Another is that your colleagues won't like to work with you. So you would really
yes.
try to think, no, you would really try to think if you will really be insisting what you want, may it be personally ba, or you're just insisting your own opinion, or it's really for the good of everyone. You really have to think about those things, when you go in conflict talaga. When you choose to be in conflict with everyone, somehow they would think, come on, you might have low emotional skills, no? Those are things that,
Mm,
and you have anger management issues also.
mm,
So when you are somehow you are in the profession, you really have to be a model to your students and also to your colleague. So we really have to be mindful of what we do and how we act. Yeah, that's my thought for that.
yeah, that's
Mm-mm.
I like what you said there, Miss G, about knowing the situation, right?
Yeah.
So if you are just making an argument or making an issue about something, but what are the consequences of that?
Yeah.
Sure, you feel slighted. Sure, you feel upset
Disrespected.
or
Yeah.
disrespected, right?
Yeah.
But trying to pause and see what is the source of that feeling. So, for example, as you said, if you were to kind of give in to the emotion, let it overtake your rational side, it might cost you a number of
More
things.
trouble. Yeah.
It might cost more trouble. It might cost you your job promotion. It
Yes.
might cost you a good working relations with your
Yeah.
colleagues,
Yeah.
because if is it worth it showing them that you're not able to handle the anger? Obviously,
Yes.
there'll be some exceptions, right? Like
Mhm.
what Attorney Nikki was saying also a while ago, where sometimes at that heat of the moment you really have to stand up. But as you said, there are moments for that. But most of the time, most
Yeah.
of the time, maybe it's not really that big of a deal. Maybe there's a bigger purpose and a bigger reason for this, right?
Mm.
That is not worth, getting super angry about.
Engaging
Uh,
to, yeah, conflict. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Any additional thoughts here, Attorney Nikki, Asik Nikki, about strategies on distinguishing the feelings from the actions?
I think practice, you have
Mm-mm.
to, and Ma'am Gino mentioned
Yeah.
mindfulness kanina, no? And I think
Yeah.
this you probably heard of it, no? That this is a thing that's, yes, it's gathering ground, no? Nowadays, lot of advocates now for mindfulness, a lot of apps about mindfulness, and one of the basic tenets about mindfulness is it's something you have to practice regularly, maybe even every day, no? And and if you do that, it's something as simple as observing yourself breathe for a couple of minutes will eventually carry over to be able to observe your emotions as well. So I think if you do begin some some mindfulness practice, if you're interested in mindfulness, they it can offer a lot of practices, a lot of approaches that can allow us to catch yourselves in those moments, in those vulnerable moments when our emotions can potentially get the better of us.
Yeah, absolutely, right. And as we kind of make sure to kind of be more aware
Yeah.
of that
Emotionally
feeling,
aware. Yeah.
yeah, and and
Emotionally
and
aware.
and that it's okay to feel that, but we
Yes.
also, and in a way, the feelings sometimes we can't control
Yeah.
because we feel what we feel, but what we can control is the action from the feeling, right? So we can
The
choose
reaction.
to the reaction to the feeling, right? So I'm
Yeah.
upset, I'll shout at him or her,
Hit
or or
him.
or or,
Something
or,
like
or
that.
like,
Aggressive
or throw something. I'll
reactions.
throw
Yeah.
the chalk or the paper, or I'll put down the phone, I'll close the Zoom link. I won't talk to him anymore. I
Withdraw.
mean,
Yeah.
withdraw themselves,
Yeah.
right? But I mean, what did that help? Did it solve the problem, right? Did
Yeah.
it really
Exactly.
achieve
No.
anything? So, for example, let's say, going back again to the classroom setting, Miss G, if
Yeah.
let's say we're trying to implement blended learning. Okay, for example, in the classroom, we were so used to face, but because of
Mhm.
the pandemic, we had to do virtual classes and lessons. But let's say I'm a faculty head in my department, but then I'm trying to encourage them to kind of learn these
Yeah.
online techniques, be more
Yeah.
comfortable with using video conferencing and what have you. But then some of my colleagues are resisting, right?
Yes.
They're thinking na you're just making my job harder for me,
Yeah.
right? Because
Really hard.
I've been teaching like this ever since,
Traditional teaching. Yeah.
and you're trying to make me do something else that I'm not comfortable with. Do you want me to not work or not do
Resign.
my job?
Or
So
resign.
are you, or
Yeah.
resign? Are you trying to kick me out of my job, or so there's the emotion of it, but how do we kind of see, let's say if I have a problem with a colleague like that, what how can we take steps to help them understand and bridge
Okay.
the gap between the differences in opinion, right? Because
Yeah.
there's, yeah, so what steps should we take in that situation?
Actually, you really have to acknowledge what's really the existing problem. That's important. Eh. And then you
Mm,
could really ask them, no, let's talk about this. We cannot just ignore
mm,
what is existing, especially the changes on the platform to be used to continue learning, especially in how you really deliver the quality, the learning, no, the learning itself. So, and all the adjustments. So I might as well. What is important here? The key thing here, no, the skill to be developed talaga to become well, to learn how this conflict resolution is to communicate, no, it's okay to
communication.
communicate. Yes, communicate what's your thought, what you are feeling. That's okay. I will be opening a dialogue, and come on, throw everything that you feel like. And if you're angry, that's okay. I will acknowledge that. That's a normal reaction. No, so that's
Mm,
a normal reaction. And then when you feel like, yeah, it's okay. There's no way of resolving it if you will not tone down. Eh. So you'd really put down your emotions, and then when you're okay, Let's start to think everything that you are discussing, the problems and all the complaints that you have. And then there's one thing that we have to end, no? The solution. We have really have to have a solution on what existing problem. And of course, I think no, if persons are engaged with conflict, they are thinking. They want the best. That's what I think. You have different views and opinions, which wherein you are choosing what's really the best thing to do. So somehow it would
Mm,
help, no,
mm,
improve, and you are, let's say, making people think more, become critical, more
mm.
rational. So you're developing all those skills when you surpass, no, resolving a conflict, and as well, no, maintain friendship. It's not
Maintain
because
friendship.
yes, it's not about because you have conflict and then we will have this in Filipino, sulian ng kandila, ano. It's not like that.
Okay.
It's just a part of the job. Come on. And then after that, well, we will be friends. You have to maintain. What's important is that we have the same goal, we have the same aim. No, it's the thing that we have to think. No, and ako, I respect talaga differences. So that's okay. And you have to respect mine because I respect yours. And then let's meet in the middle. Let's have bargaining and have this negotiation part. So some kind of like that. So and then in
Yeah,
the
yeah,
end, we have to resolve the conflict. It might be favorable to you or favorable to me. What it doesn't matter. Eh. What's important, we have come up with solution on this existing problem. Yeah. And then feedback
yeah,
tayo. Well, yeah. So that's it. So
yeah, yeah.
evaluation of the solutions. Yeah.
Right. So there has to be communication, and still try to understand that we can still maintain our
Yeah.
friendship even if we disagree,
Yeah.
right?
Different
Because
views. Yeah.
just because we have a different opinion doesn't mean we can't be friends. We still can be
Yes.
friends. But
Yes.
I guess being able to look at what is the goal,
Yeah.
what are we trying to achieve,
Yeah.
ba?
It's not about
Right?
us. It's not about us.
Right?
It's about
Is
the
it
project.
exactly?
Yeah.
And being
Don't take
able
it
to see
personal.
it, who's going to really who's
Benefits.
in need
Yeah.
and benefit from it,
Yeah.
and we meet in the middle, right? So
Yes.
being able to, after processing the emotion, what
Yeah.
is the actual reason? So what is the,
Yeah.
I like what you said about identifying the problem.
Yeah.
What's the situation and what's the goal? We want to solve
Yeah.
the problem. So how do we work together to actually resolve that issue? And it's not
Yeah.
about me one upping you or me
Yeah.
being disrespected. Yeah, you might feel that, but maybe the other party said, I didn't mean
Yes.
to. I
Yeah.
didn't mean to make you feel disrespected, but this is
Yes.
my point of view.
Yeah.
And then, okay, that's your point of view, but this is my point of view. How can we understand each other,
Yeah.
right?
How can we meet in
Um,
the center? Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So,
Mm.
how about your thoughts here, Asek Nikki? I mean, you know, after the, let's say, the emotional part, let's assume that
Yeah.
the parties are willing to come to the table and negotiate and bargain. Like, how do we, what's kind of the structure typically that, you've applied, even in your own, whether it's a legal framework or a private sector framework? What kind of structure do you follow in terms of identifying the problem, solving the problem, and kind of meeting in the middle?
Let me. I can think of certain situations similar to the situation you gave us, like
Mm,
um, requiring blended learning or requiring teachers who are so used to the traditional ways to
mm,
to implement something new, no, something they have to learn, something they are not used to, right? Where you go against the inertia, no, you go against inertia, and we know that inertia can be quite a strong force, no,
there's
especially
resistance
for
there's resistance
yeah,
from the other party, right? Yeah.
yes, yes, no. So I could imagine, I could think of plenty situations in my head, no, plenty situations that involve um, changing the status quo. And there's so
Mm,
much resistance to changing the status quo because I think as human beings, we have this status quo bias. And I
mm,
agree with what Miss G said. No? Dialogue is most important. There must be some kind of dialogue with those parties who will be affected by the change in status quo. Those parties who are very comfortable with the status quo or who even have something to lose because of the change in the status quo. And I agree with what Miss G said that there has to be understanding or acceptance of their views, no, not necessarily their position, but of their views. I think a lot of the times hearing people out, no, hearing people out is can already go a long way, especially if those people you're talking to know, those people who want the status quo, are may power imbalance. Kung whatever happens naman, pwede mo
Mm.
you're the authority. May impose mo yung change in status quo. Wala namang magagawa yung mga ano. Wala namang magagawa yung mga
Yeah, they
maapektuhan.
can't do
But
anything
Yeah.
because
yeah,
if you're in the authority position, it's like you're just
Yes.
yes,
dictating, but there's
yes,
resistance. Yeah,
yes. But you just hear them out. Hear them out,
yeah,
let them vent. And sometimes though, that already goes a long
It
way.
helps. Mhm.
Yeah. But
yeah,
and then again,
absolutely.
and at the same time, and it doesn't end it. The moment that you have that dialogue and you do come up with solutions, hopefully the solution will be somewhere in the middle. That's not the end because the solutions still have to be implemented.
Yes.
Yes.
Commitment
And
as
during the
well.
course, yeah, and during the course of implementation, there still has to be patience. There still has to be understanding on those who will be adversely affected.
Yeah.
So finally, my final concern is that we must be a little pragmatic or realistic when it
Mhm.
comes to the solutions that we're going to come up with, as well as the monitoring of compliance or the implementation of these solutions.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree here, right? So, being able to communicate, and then of course, after, while there's a different viewpoint, and you try to come up with some sort of middle ground, but then after you agree on a solution, who's monitoring the compliance, who's looking
Yeah.
at the implementation of it, as you've, let's say, hopefully agreed on, these are the steps moving forward on how to, solve the issue. So for example, let's go back to, again, if I'm in a position of authority, let's say I am the head of the school, and then I say, we're all moving into blended learning. Okay, and then whether you're an experienced teacher or not, or you're comfortable, this is something we need to do. But so how do we hear the viewpoints from our faculty, right? So they will say,
Feedback.
Miss G, I don't know. Yeah, so what kind of
Yes.
feedback, Miss G, have you
Yeah.
heard from let's say faculty are kind of not really in agreement with this move to let's say a blended learning format? Can you give examples of
Yes.
what feedback
Example.
they give? Yeah.
Actually, they were left no choice. Yeah, they were left no
Okay.
choice actually. Um, it's here. You really have to learn how to manipulate or explore the digital space for you to stay in your position. Because
Mm,
this is the trend of learning, the digital learning. So if you
mm,
still want to continue teaching, you really have to embrace the changes. No, it's like we have to earn. Those are the things that we really have to let them know. If you want to continue teaching, you want to be hired, you have to be equipped with the skills. No, that's important. And somehow, DepEd naman, in fairness with DepEd, no,
mm,
DepEd really supplied all the trainings the teachers need. It's just that the
mm.
problems they encountered was with the seasoned teachers, meaning that the seniors one, the senior ones, not the older ones. Imagine exploring the computer. Of course, it would really be hard for them using the different applications or the platforms to teach. But somehow things can be learned. And what's good here, no? Here in the education system, we help each other. For example, you are the
Yes.
younger ones. That's the camaraderie, no? Helping out these older teachers, no? To be adept in using the platform. It's so good. I have
Mm,
a friend, no? She's already 60 and now she's teaching. Hi, Ma'am Eva.
mm.
I know you're watching. I said you watch. Yeah, I said she watched. And that's good that they have embraced. And she was telling me, hey, you know what? The first week I was so stressed, but now she can teach on her own. That's so good.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, yes.
That's
And
great.
I think no, if ever there are changes, no, for example, you have agreed on some conflict and then you have come up with solutions. Come to engage yourself, be committed. No, that's important for us to really implement the solution. The parties should really be committed and as well take accountability and responsibility of the task given to us. So that makes conflict, resolved as well, I think. Just embracing changes, it's important.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
So
just
I
don't
just want,
argue, just follow. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So
Mm,
okay, that's one approach,
mm,
right? Yeah.
yeah.
But even let's say if you're arguing or if you're following, there's a good reason to follow.
Yes.
And I just want to come back to your example. Let's say you have more seasoned teachers, more experienced teachers.
Yes.
We've had very similar experiences at Acadesia. We've trained over 100,000 teachers of different age groups. But from our experience, it's really not about age, it's about mindset.
Yes.
And
That
what
you
we say
are
about
willing to
mindset is,
learn. Yeah.
yeah, they have the lifelong learning mindset. And I'll share with you, we have a exemplary also first timers, 66 years old, never touched a computer really more than, let's say, just looking at, Facebook or some social media or TikTok. But when they were kind of went through the training with us, even after like 7 days of training, it was very difficult at the start. But after that, they make better online courses than the young people. But
Good.
but what was the start of resolving the conflict is, in the organizations they were at, is they listened to the faculty.
Yes.
They
The
listened
needs.
to the
Mm-mm.
needs of the faculty. It's
Yes.
like they say, sir or ma'am, I'm not really sure if I can learn it, or can you give me a bit more time to kind of get used
Mm-hmm.
to the system?
Yes.
So those were the beginnings. This was 2 years ago, right? Or in the
Mm-hmm.
beginnings of blended learning. And as you said, the DepEd and the other groups, even the management of the schools, they were also
Yeah.
very open to, okay, we'll give you more time to get more comfortable.
Yes.
In the same way, we gave some academic leniency to our learners when they were submitting in this new format. We also gave some learning curve or some time
Preparation. Yeah.
to allow the the
Teachers to be
the
prepared.
faculty to be prepared and become more
Yes.
comfortable. And that points to, let's say, the middle ground you were suggesting, where they tried it with the right mindset, and uy, kaya pala, we can actually do it, it's
Yeah.
doable,
Yes.
right? And then how do you monitor after that? Then that's the feedbacking, right?
Yes.
So
Feedback.
let's say after one semester, you've tried to do, let's say, this kind of online class. It's not perfect, it's not always going to be the best, but we learn from that and become better next
Yeah.
semester, right? So that's just the cycle of, from the emotional conflict to identifying the issues,
Yes.
listening, communicating until we come up with a solution that we monitor
Mhm.
afterwards. So um, yeah, maybe I'll just move on to the next question. We're getting a few of our questions in the chat already. I can see very interesting questions. I'll look back to them a little bit. But while I'm looking at them, maybe you can share a bit more insights, a couple of more things before we go to the Q&A. Um, we talk about uh, how do we, so to prevent the escalation, let's say if it escalates out of control, diba? So we don't want it to get to that point
Yeah.
where you're not able to anymore talk or discuss or sort things out, right? I mean, just from your own experience, let's say, Asek Nikki, like when you come to a point where it's kind of hard to turn back, are there still opportunities to resolve the conflict still? Are there other things that can be done if the two parties are still, bumping heads, as you say?
Maybe time and distance. This applies
Mm,
to any conflict, no, but I think
mm,
it's even more effective if the conflict seems to be unresolvable, seems to fester.
mm.
Um, give it time and put some distance between the people in the conflict, and maybe, maybe things will simmer down a little bit.
Okay. Yeah. So maybe, let's say, if we apply it to education, maybe this semester, maybe we can't roll out blended learning immediately. Let's do a trial first and then see how it goes with a small
Yeah.
group of teachers. And then maybe next semester we try. So just give it some time and distance
Mhm.
to
Okay, well,
kind of, spread it out a bit.
I'm
Yes.
not sure if time
But
distance will be
maybe,
applicable to that scenario.
yeah, yeah, because,
Yeah, because
uh,
because it's immediate. In that scenario, it's pretty immediate. The
right,
need to
right.
adjust to blended learning.
Yeah, so sometimes it's mandated, but trying to get the buy-in, I guess, of some
Yeah.
parties. What about, if there are existing forums or arbitration in legal speak,
Yes.
Attorney Nikki, right? So maybe there's another, I don't know, authority or another group who can give counsel, and parang
Oh
they
yeah.
kind of can bring the parties
Or
together. if they're not
That's a really good
agreeing,
point.
right? Yeah.
Really good example, really good point right now, because on the past few years, or past 2 decades, there's been a shift in mindset when it comes to resolving disputes. Before, when you talk about law, when you talk about DOJ, it's all about going to court.
Mm.
Going to court has always been the mode of resolving disputes between parties who can't get along. But now well, in fact, we've had it for quite a while, these alternative modes of dispute resolution. But past few decades, there's been more emphasis on them. This includes arbitration, conciliation, mediation, and and shifting, no? And even in the same case, no, let's say a case has been pending in court for quite a while, these options are available, particularly mediation and conciliation. And what's so good
Mm.
about having these options is they provide a shift in perspective, change in approach. No, you remember I mentioned earlier now when I was still doing litigation, right? It's so easy to respond adversely to opposing counsel because
Mm.
unfortunately that's how litigation is designed. It's an adversarial proceeding where you're pitted against each other. Where it's inevitable for you to butt heads, no? Because there can only be one winner in that kind of setting. Alternative modes of dispute resolution, they're not adversarial, especially mediation, because in mediation the aim is to the aim is to arrive at an amicable settlement between the parties, ideally a win-win situation, or most likely one wherein both parties lose a little but they still gain something in the end.
Right. And I think I want to take away from what you said, Asik Nikki, is there are other avenues,
Yes.
right? So let's say if between the two parties, let's say if we relate it to academic setting, let's say it's between teachers in the same department or between two
Yes.
students. Let's say the two students are
Yes.
fighting. The forum of arbitration is the teacher, because
Yes,
then the teacher as the figure say, okay, this is how you guys can make up and become friends again. But
friends
in the
again.
same way, in fellow teachers, or then they bring it up to their
It's
faculty head or to the principal, right, Miss G?
it's not, actually it's not like that, eh. It would be like group to group, no, there's a
Group
faction
to
that
group.
would be, yeah, that
Okay.
would be existing. Actually, my friends will be against your friends, and that we
Mm.
the thing is, the two of you lang ang nag-aaway, you're just fighting, and then eventually when you went back to the faculty, of course there are some, no, groups will be in favor to you, and then the other parties would also be in favor to you. So that would be, now, come on, two groups now fighting, rather than just the two of you lang. It could settle it sana, no? So
Sure,
hopefully,
sure. But
yeah,
then from our discussion,
yeah,
then how do we prevent that kind of escalation?
yeah.
No?
Actually, here's the thing. As much as possible sana, you have to think of a strategy na you can really redirect yung argumentative energy of a person rather than attempting to overcome it. So as much as possible, to avoid this verbal violence or fight, to be engaged in a fight, I would rather say maybe the communication as well, no? You would say good and nice words rather than engaging yourself, no? Respecting her opinion. Yes, I respect that. I appreciate what you said. I agree with what you said. Actually, those are the things that you can, would lessen the possibility of having a fight, no? And again, if you are really dealing with a difficult person, you could talk to them privately. And you could really, what's the problem ba? Can we talk? Actually, there are some
Yes.
problems that they would exist, eh. Like the older teacher, the senior teacher, and the younger teacher. Those are things that,
Mm.
it's really surprising that they would actually forget that they are in the school, and that the parents, and would, of course, the learners would hear them and see them that they are fighting. Good gracious. And I was thinking, come
Yeah,
on,
yeah.
go back to your senses. You can settle it privately, and you cannot work with this kind of feeling and emotion with each other. For example, you are in just one department. Come on. And for example, you need to pass something. Pakibigay kay ganito. You cannot
Mm.
directly give the thing, or you cannot really directly say to the person. And the feeling of uncomfortability, the stress that you have. It's so hard to go to work, and you could see that someone that you are having an argument, you would go to another way, eh. because you don't like to bump each other's way. So that's the thing. Your word is like in
Yeah,
Filipino, lumiliit ang mundo mo kasi nga may
yeah, yeah.
kaaway ka. So come
Yeah,
on.
if you're not
Yeah.
having good relations with your coworker, you
Yes.
avoid them, and that is
Avoidance.
not
Yeah.
productive for everybody. It's
Yeah.
not productive for
Yeah.
the school. You're not achieving the learning outcomes and the
Yeah.
students' education softwares. It's not a
Mm.
good impression. It's not a good model
Yes.
to show our learners, right? So,
Yes.
but in your example, Miss G, just to circle it back,
Yeah.
then there has to be an arbitrator or a figure of authority
Yes.
that they both recognize is
The school
worthy of
head.
mediating the
Yeah.
negotiation,
Mm.
right? And
Exactly.
then
Yeah.
they kind of, and then to step away from the emotion and really break down the issue. What is really the issue?
Yeah.
Is it because and they air out their feelings, but then what is the source of the feeling? Is it because this action, and then try to come up with, okay, then maybe I'll stop doing this. This is not what I meant when I did that, and
Yeah.
this is how we can resolve and
Yeah.
work together moving forward. But they
Exactly.
just needed a safe space to, as you
Yes.
said, just talk it out and
Mhm.
and work it out, right? So,
Yeah.
and that's how we kind of de-escalate and kind of
Yes.
resolve conflict in a mature,
In
rational
mature way
manner,
and
right? So
realizations as well. Oo.
yeah, so I'll move now to the Q&A because I'll just link some of our discussions here, and then and then kind of wrap up towards the end. We'll have some final thoughts
Yeah.
from our panelists. Okay, so there's,
Yeah.
I think there's one question here about older and younger learners or participants, parties. It really isn't a matter of age, I think. Regardless of age, it's more the mindset and how you can are open to communicating and resolving the conflict. There's one interesting comparison here. So here, question number two: would you think that conflict resolution might be different from those who are educated and not as educated? Okay, no matter how far we go, conflict exists all the time. But what would be the best solution to
Yeah.
close this gap? And this is a controversial question, right? Depending on
Level of
how much
education.
level of understanding between the
Yeah.
parties, diba? I think the question is implying,
Mm.
what if someone, assuming someone knows a bit the situation better than the other, but they still can't see eye to eye? How do you close the gap on that?
I would answer. Actually, if know more about what's happening, then extend more. If you can extend more understanding, then go do down on the level wherein you would be understood. So what would you keep on insisting? This is how it should be done or something. Why not? Here, listen to them,
Mm,
listen where are they coming from. That is really important, eh. So you could have this what call this negotiation part. So okay,
mm,
let's give in. If I could we could have this solution that you are giving us, so something like that. So ang importante kasi you listen to each other, and
mm.
it's not because I know more, I'm intelligent more. Mind you, there are other educated also who has this
Yes.
bad temper. It's not about being
Yeah.
educated or not educated.
Or
It's
they
about
have
the
this, what
person,
they call that, like,
emotional awareness.
yeah,
Yes.
they have
Oh,
intellectual arrogance. They
yeah,
think that,
yeah.
just
They're
because they
better
think,
than the yeah.
yeah, and
I
that
agree.
doesn't help
Yeah.
anybody, because then,
Yeah.
all the more the other party will not agree with you.
Yeah, even they're not educated, but if they are very well mannered and they can talk to you, let's say, mas maayos, mas mahinahon. And you would really
Yeah,
want to talk to this person na who's not really shouting at you and telling you that you blaming you actually. Though there are people feeling righteous. So really hard to
yeah,
deal with these people talaga. That's why there are conflicts arising.
that's right.
Yeah.
Asak, Nikki, any thoughts on this?
I agree with that one.
Mm.
Parang, I don't think there's really a line between educate edu- I don't think education is a criteria when it comes to conflict resolution, in the sense that it would entail different ways of dealing with the conflict. Because yes, as Ma'am G said, no, sometimes educated people have their own issues as well, no? And I think one of the biggest issues there is ego and status. Ego and
Mm,
status can really get in the way when it comes to
mm,
conflict, because it can become this consideration that that someone who has it will will not necessarily back down on. It's a consideration that will that will make it difficult for for that person to give concession.
Yeah, so I like what you mentioned about ego and status. Like some parties will perceive that they have the higher status and they should just be
Pride.
followed. But the challenge there is if they keep insisting every time, then sometimes you just get nominal compliance,
Yeah.
but in fact there's resentment brewing
Inside.
underneath,
Mhm.
and in the long
Yes.
term you don't achieve the goals, you don't get the
Yes.
Yeah.
productivity you need, and it leaves a bad taste in the mouth in terms of, let's say,
Yeah.
that kind of approach. A more effective approach is actually being able to dialogue and and see, regardless of, just a level of understanding. If I think if they're able to communicate, you should be able to have a basic understanding of a common
Mm-mm.
ground, right? Na, we
Yes.
both want to achieve this. This is what I can do, this is what you can do. Can we
Yeah.
work at it together?
We are
But
together.
and if you have a hard time processing that, find someone who's good at mediating and
Mediating.
negotiating that. That's why, di ba, Attorney Nikki, we have negotiators, we have
Yeah.
people who are good
Yeah.
at finding middle ground, right? They're experts at that. You
Yeah.
have friends like that who, in pardon my Filipino vernacular, but magaling magpabate ng
Yeah.
mga kaaway.
Mag-ayos.
They're able to get
Pacify people.
yeah, pacify and get conflicting parties to work together. There's
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
people with that talent, so please find those
Yes.
experts if you can. Okay,
Yeah.
my last question, I guess, from the Q&A before I
Mm-mm.
get the final thoughts of the panel. Um, and this one is a bit more broader in perspective. In your opinion, do you think that COVID taught us anything about resolving any lessons from COVID on resolving conflict, whether it's is it temporary or permanent, right? Is there anything that COVID has taught us as we're trying to normalize, or kind of the new normal? We're learning to live with the virus now, and all these other
Yes.
things are happening in society now. But is there any lessons from COVID that taught us about resolving conflict?
Actually, I think, Sir Roy, no, COVID taught us to become resilient and value life. Imagine,
Yeah.
Mm,
you really be thankful that you are awake. For example, today and tomorrow, during the
mm,
height of the pandemic, come on. Will you really be arguing with these people around you who's also fighting to live? Come on. There's really no
mm,
sense of arguing with these people. It's just that you learn to share what you have, you settle whatever agreements because life is too short. Imagine those are
mm,
the things that me personally I learned that it doesn't matter the amount or the price of the clothes that you wear. What is important to me, even with a little resources, but I'm with the people that I love with, why would I argue with these people? The thing that I see them breathing, that's really so important. All the people around, trying to live a normal life right now, no? So talagang why settle for arguments with these people if you could help? That's my point. Help each other resolve conflicts. Don't argue, don't insist what you want because everybody has their own set of needs. So if we could meet in the center, come on, we could settle it in
okay.
peaceful way without arguing or hitting somebody because I want to get what I want. No, it's not like that, no. So
Yeah. Thanks, Miss
yeah,
G. That's a great insight.
yeah,
Just appreciation of what we have, and learning to, maybe some arguments or problems or conflicts are not as big as just being able to appreciate, what we have, whether it's being alive and what resources we have, and
contented, yeah, be
make, you
contented,
know, and move on and live our lives.
yeah.
Attorney Nikki, any lessons from COVID on conflict resolution?
I agree with this. She said COVID, the lessons from COVID is actually positive. If there's one thing that came out of COVID, it's really this change in mindset to be, of course, it's still bad that it happened. We'd rather it not have happened, but it's already here. We might as well appreciate some of those good things that came out of it. And one of the good things is the change in perspective that it offered. We mentioned earlier, how a change in perspective puts us in a position to deal with and resolve conflicts better. And I think that's precisely what happened here with COVID now, with that change in perspective. We learn to appreciate things more. We learn to be more mindful. Of course, we can't deny, that being stuck at home, being worried about getting the disease or your family members getting the disease, being worried about your livelihood, that presents its own set of challenge, its own set of challenges. But then again, we have that change in perspective that allows us to be more, I don't know, maybe more humble, because we now know, that disease, and it can just happen anytime. Some people say that COVID is not the last, no, that there can very well be another epidemic out there of similar proportions. And that makes us realize our place in the world, no, in the universe. That despite all the accomplishments of mankind, despite how mankind has seemingly conquered nature, no, nature can still find a way to get back to us, and that makes us more humble.
Yeah, and it really puts in our perspective, our place in this world, right? And how to, be more appreciative of each and every day that we have together. And why would we want to expend our energies fighting among
Yeah.
ourselves when we should actually be working together to make our lives better and our planet better? Yeah. So great
Yes.
insights, Ms. G, Attorney Nikki. Maybe as a last round, your final thoughts, final thoughts on our topic, um, and how we can, I guess, you know, bring let's say, our learnings from this about conflict and conflict resolution. Uh, what can we share to our audiences as a final thought about our topic today?
Mhm. Okay. So I'll give my my last message, no, to our audience. So I think, no, sa akin it's important to make our relationship with other people our priority. It's so hard to wake up every morning that you have this heavy heart, and then you go to work, and then you would have this enemy inside the school or inside the office. So if you can patch it up, come on guys, patch it up. Another is that focus on the present. Don't let ruin your relationship, becoming a historian, bringing back the past and past. Of course, you would always be in conflict with other people if you keep on bringing up past issues, no? So just look forward, no? So that's important, if to look forward on having a better relationship and solving conflicts. Another is pick your battles. Be matured enough. Not everything is worth fighting for. Tandaan yan. Another is be willing to forgive. If it's just a simple thing, just find your heart, no, the forgiveness and the happiness, the joy of sleeping soundly at night. That there is no one cursing you. That you can really sleep at night talaga because you are friends with everyone. And lastly, know when to let go. If there's some kind of issues that you keep on insisting, come on, it's so hard to have these issues talaga, and growing up with resentments and fighting over with other people. And I want those people, not me, ako personally, to be remembered as a person who is understanding, a forgiving person who has this wide understanding and perception about life. I don't like them to avoid me. So that's it. And if ever, no, things getting worse, affecting you, no anger management, you have problem understanding other people, I think it's better to seek professional help as well. As a guidance a counselor, well, if maybe you could need somebody to talk to, no? So that's it. So hi, Sir Ryan, thank you so much, Sir Roy, for inviting me.
Thank you, Miss G. Asik Nikki, your final thoughts.
Final thought, I said it earlier, I just want to emphasize it. This is one thing I remind myself a lot. I tell myself as much as possible now, that more often than not, things are worse in our head than they actually are. You know, some more often than not, the conflict, the source of conflict does not exist, and more often not, the slights that we perceive are fictional or exaggerated. And this this emanates, I would think, from maybe this default mindset that we have, that we are the center of the universe, and we think that, but you can't be the center of the universe because there's so many people in the universe. You're just someone out there, and most likely, you're just one person, but most likely everyone else here has the same issues, the same goals, the same dreams, and when we think of it that way, I think it would be easier to resolve any conflicts that arise. So those are my final thoughts.
Thank you, Azekniki. Fantastic. If you guys could stay behind just a couple of more minutes after we wrap up so that we can debrief, and I'd like to thank you personally after this. For our friends in the audience, our dear teachers from all over the world, thank you very much for joining us. I just want to remind you that to be able to get the accompanying, enroll in the accompanying course that comes with this webinar, and I'll share my screen right now to show you, you have to go to freejoo.com. That is our platform where you can share, collaborate, and communicate with each other on all these education tips and knowledge, and so that you can actually upskill yourselves. So after you log into FreeJoo, you'll see this is our website. Make sure you create your teacher account or sign up. Once you log in, go to Skilled or Skilled so that you can see our inventory of all these professional development courses that we have. In fact, next week, we'll be highlighting our course on Introduction to STEAM Education. So here on the right side, we have our partner from the USA, Miss Gail Rosen, who will show you how you can use STEAM to further increase the impact and fun interestingness of your lessons by injecting STEAM into your courses and classes. So please join us next week for that. But for this week, our topic is conflict resolution. So just go to, again, Skilled and look for conflict resolution. Make sure you enroll into the course. And after you enroll, you should see the course itself. Go through the course items, and you will receive, at the end of it, there's a short assessment, and you'll get your digital certificate. It is not tamper-proof because it is verified on the blockchain. It's very secure. So no one can pretend that you're someone else finishing this course. So, and you can use that as a credential to present to any employer or your colleagues that you've completed our training course for this portion of the webinar. There's a payment form. Just make sure that you upgrade to the silver account so that you can actually upgrade and avail of the conflict resolution course. Very affordable. By upgrading once, you get access to all the courses. It's super cheap. It's only for $20, 1,000 pesos only for one entire year. Okay, so that's not even 4 Starbucks coffees. Okay, very affordable, only 4 Starbucks. You get all our webinars and all our programs, and you will get all the certificates that come along with it. Good for one entire year. Okay, so please don't forget to sign up and join us. We have in our chat the ways you can sign up for the silver membership and avail of the course. And again, on behalf of Ms. G and Azekniki, such a pleasure having you this afternoon with us. On behalf of AcadAsia, again, I'm Roy Platon, and thank you. Next week, we'll have our next set of webinars, STEAM Education, so we'll catch you then. See you, and thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Hi. I am Jenny and welcome to FREEJOO, the global community of educators. Let me show you why as an educator you should make FREEJOO an important part of your teaching and learning practice. A community of teaching practice is important for any educator. On FREEJOO you will be able to access CollabEd, which is like LinkedIn but for educators. Here you will be able to connect and network with other educators from all around the world. You can build your own community of teaching practice or join one of the many other existing groups and learn and share ideas, lesson plans, etc. with each other. Then, for a more formalized approach to professional development, you can go to SkillEd, which is like Netflix for educators. Here, you will be able to access a wide range of courses designed by global experts that will help you to learn about new pedagogical, technical, and soft skills, all related to 21st century education and the future of work. There are more than 20 courses available for free, and for more advanced level courses, you can upgrade to the silver membership plan for just $20 per year and get access to all courses designed by AcadAsia. The courses are available in English and in several other Asian languages. And what's more, you will receive a free verifiable and tamper-proof digital certificate for each course that you complete. If you have upgraded your membership to the silver, gold, or platinum plans, you also get access to DesignEd, which is like Canva for educators. Here you will find the easiest and fastest way to practice your own instructional design skills and build your own courses. We have pre-integrated several third-party edtech apps like Flipgrid, Canva, Mentimeter, Padlet, H5P, Zoom, etc. right into FREEJOO so you can make your courses engaging and fun for your own learners. As you can see, there is a lot you can do on FREEJOO as an educator. So what are you waiting for? Go to www.freejoo.com and get your very own free lifetime membership today. See you soon on FREEJOO.